Argentina almost stumbling out, Ronaldo, legend or liability, Brazil's shocking exit, and are England finally ready? These are the latest stories that define this World Cup, and we're here to break them all down. Welcome back to Sideline Story. I'm your host Yang Guan, and alongside me every episode are my sharp-eyed co-hosts Tian Yu and Brendan Gates. If you love the beautiful game and you are tired of the same old hot takes, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to drop us a comment or voice message. Alright, let's do this. Kicking things off with Argentina. What a ride that was against Egypt. Emotion, drama, and no shortage of controversies. Yes. But once the dust settles, we have to admit Argentina's performance was far from convincing. So Tian Yu, how do you assess that match and Argentina's progression to the last eight?
Yeah, like you said, this was a game full of controversy. But putting that aside for a moment, Egypt pushed Argentina to its limit. For large parts of the match, Egypt looked like, the better team. They pressed relentlessly. They kept running. They never stopped running. And every time they won the ball back, they looked very dangerous. The disallowed goal was probably the best move of the game.
Or best counter-attack in this World Cup.
Yes, that was really sharp. Hassan's run, Salah's perfectly weighted pass, and Zico's finish. It could have been a fantastic goal.
Yeah.
I understand why VAR ruled it out. There was a clear foul on Lisandro Martinez earlier in the move, so the decision itself wasn't completely baseless, but a lot of the marginal decisions seemed to go Argentina's way. In the end, I feel sorry about Egypt. I think they played one of the best game of this whole tournament, but the match will be probably remembered more of the controversy than for how well they actually performed.
Actually, this game reminded me of the game between Senegal and Belgium. Senegal was 2-0 up until the 80th minute. What a pity for two African teams.
Yeah.
Brendan, where do you stand on the refereeing? Was it genuinely poor, as some fans and the Egyptian team, as well as Tian Yu claimed? And the bottom line, did Argentina truly deserve to come out on top?
Well, first of all, let me start off by saying I love a good conspiracy theory, even though I know most of them are absolute nonsense. But I do like to, when I'm bored, I like to go down the rabbit hole and there's so many social media personalities that are using the World Cup to sort of like start these ridiculous conspiracy theories. And, one of them is that, like, how they have to plug in the football to charge it. So there's now this conspiracy theory that there's like forces behind the World Cup, that are running the world and are, shape, global narratives and world domination. But all jokes aside, I think the refereeing, has been adequate. I don't know if it's been absolutely horrendous. But that being said, I also think that there's been so much drama for the referees to contend with. I think more so than we've seen at most competitions. So, I think it's great for the World Cup. I think there have been a lot of games where unexpected things are happening, and there's been big turnarounds, and there's been a lot of questionable calls, and that's part of a major tournament. And I think that the World Cup does that. And did Argentina deserve to win? I wouldn't say they deserved to win, but the crucial thing is that they did win. They showed absolutely incredible resilience and a winning mentality. And I think that can also be as valuable as tactical perfection at a tournament like this. And I think a team like Argentina, I also don't think they're one of the teams at the World Cup that thrives on tactical perfection or, tactical rigidness. And they have the players and the experience to get them over the line when they're struggling. And they've proven that once again. And I think that their depth is also really helpful. And I think that Scaloni also has to figure out ways to sort of implement the depth, particularly in attack, in a more impactful way. And I guess the game against Egypt was a great way to begin that, because I think the comeback also had a lot to do with some of the players coming off the bench. What's also good for Argentina is that they find a way to win, and I think at a tournament like this, there's going to be games where you don't play well. And, Argentina's game against Egypt was a great example of that. But they found a way to turn things around. And I think that's going to bode them very well as the tournament progresses. Winning easy doesn't create a champion, but finding a way to overcome adversity and still win, that's what ultimately creates a champion. So I think Argentina can be very confident about their chances as the tournament progresses now, even though they haven't been playing at their best.
Agreed, agreed. Well, from my perspective, I mean, yes, it looks like the calls changed the momentum of the game a little bit. But the reason is that the game itself was eventful. The calls on 5 goals were basically correct, but some decisions, as you said, some 50-50 balls and some bookings and missed bookings were arguable. Overall, I think the referee didn't impact the result of the game, but some detailed calls could have been better. Now let's talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. His final chapter in the World Cup has been the most debated storylines recently. We've seen he adapt his game, dropping deeper, playing more as a facilitator than a pure finisher. But the question remains. Tianyu, you are a big Cristiano Ronaldo fan. Has this evolution of the player genuinely helped Portugal, or has it come out at a tangible cost to their overall rhythm?
Well, yeah, as a Ronaldo fan, this is a really difficult question for me because this is certainly his last World Cup. And I think Brandon can share the feeling with me. And seeing Portugal go out before the quarterfinals is really tough. For years, we always had talking about Ronaldo carrying the Portugal team forward, but this tournament was different. I actually think this Portugal squad is much stronger than the ones he has around him for years. And at the same time, we're also seeing a 41-year-old Ronaldo who's naturally lost his pace and his sharpness. So it's understandable that people are questioning whether he was holding the team back. But I think it's not that simple. To me, a lot of his struggles actually came from the way Roberto Martinez used him. In the games, we kept seeing Ronaldo dropping deep to receive the ball outside the box. But that's not where he's dangerous anymore. I mean, once he dropped back, he couldn't get into the penalty box quickly. And defenders were really happy to let him have the ball from that area because it just didn't play to his strengths.
It means less threat from Ronaldo.
Yes. I think he should have spent much more time staying inside the box and occupying defenders and just finishing moves. That's still where he can hurt the team the most.
But do you think that's the decision made by the coach or Ronaldo himself, or it's just agreement between the two?
I would say it's the coach's call. And I also don't think he needed to start every single minute in the game. I mean, Gonçalo Ramos barely played like 20 minutes in the whole tournament, while Ronaldo was playing close to 90 minutes every match. That just doesn't make much sense for a 41-year-old player. I think there were plenty of chances in the group stage to rotate Ronaldo or, just to take him off when he was clearly running out of energy, and Martinez simply didn't do that. He doesn't have the courage.
Tanya, I have to jump in there. I actually think that Ronaldo playing the full 90 minutes for each game, I would be very surprised if that was Martinez's call. I think that I would agree with you if it was any other player except Cristiano Ronaldo and Portugal. I think that when he's in that squad, I think in terms of the way that he plays and the minutes that he gets and the positions that he takes up, I think Martinez has nothing to do with that. I think he's the one player that when he steps onto the pitch, he says whether he's playing 5 minutes or 95 minutes. And I also think that even if Martinez says, please play here, don't do this, don't do that, I think it goes in Ronaldo's right ear and goes out of his left ear. As big of a Ronaldo fan as you, but I also think that he believes that he's earned the right to make his own calls in terms of where he plays and how he understands his body and all of that sort of thing. And I think Martinez trusts that, but I also think Martinez knows that if he steps on Ronaldo's toes and Ronaldo doesn't want to play for him, then that could bring down the morale of the entire team. Even though Martinez, I don't think is tactically astute as a manager, and he's definitely not an elite manager, the only thing that I would disagree with is that I think everything that Ronaldo did at this World Cup was Ronaldo's decision, not Martinez's decision. That's my opinion.
I tend to lean towards Brandon's judgment because I really sensed that Ronaldo tried really hard to adapt by becoming a smarter player, if you will, dropping back to link up with teammates, lurking behind defenders to time his run into the box. That must be Ronaldo's decision.
Probably.
And it paid off actually in the game against Uzbekistan. That was his standout game.
Yeah.
But in recent outings, I sense that his movement kind of dragged Portugal's tempo. And I also don't understand why Gonzalo Ramos didn't earn even a minute in the Spain game, especially after he had that brilliant performance against Croatia.
Yeah, we didn't know about that.
Yeah. Brandon, but the ultimate question is, are Portugal a better team with Ronaldo in this specific team, or are they carrying a legend at the cost of their collective ceiling?
I think they're a better player with him if they play their best and Ronaldo stays in the box and does what he does best. And I don't think that the tactics and the way that the team stepped up benefited Ronaldo. I think that all of these supposedly best midfielders in the world that I raved about and I thought would really stand up at this World Cup didn't perform. I think Mendes and Vitinha and were particularly bad against Spain. I thought Bruno Fernandes was okay, but was also probably taking on more than he should have, like Ronaldo, trying to get into the box and trying to get into the goal scoring sort of situations. Whereas, I think Ronaldo dropping deep too often, I agree with Tianyu there, I think also created problems for the team and for himself. But I think that was also him just trying to sort of like get the guys going and try and create chances, and which the midfielders just weren't doing. That being said, when Rafa Leao came on, I think that also really changed things and created a lot more creativity. But again, some of the crossing into the box I don't think was good enough for Ronaldo to tap away. If the midfield trio connects and they stick to their positions and they play their best, and also the defenders also play their best, for example, Mendes going off and Semedo coming on, I think that had a much bigger impact than people are talking about. I think that was more impactful than Ronaldo's performance, because Semedo just looked extremely nervous at the back and kind of dismantled their balance. I'm also not a big fan of, is it Vega, the defensive partner of Diaz. I don't think that he's also a rock-solid centre-back. So that's the thing. I think with Ronaldo in this team, it needs to flow perfectly. Everyone really needs to do their job and play their best. And when they do, like they did against Uzbekistan, great things happen. But I think that the issue seems to be is that if Ronaldo's fully determined on playing the full 90 minutes, there's not really much that they can do in terms of attacking variety. If let's say Ramos did come on, what kind of role would Ronaldo play? Where would Ramos fit in? Would they have to substitute a winger? Would there be less running options up and down the flanks? So I think maybe that's where Martinez also deserves a little bit of flack, because I think that if Ronaldo and Martinez and the whole team were determined about keeping Ronaldo on for the full 90, I think they needed to figure out ways to change the way that they play while still keeping Ronaldo on the field. And I don't think Martinez and the team were good enough at doing that. Their plan B was almost non-existent.
Right. Meantime, in the same game, Spain made another clean sheet.
Yeah.
No conceded goals so far. That's an impressive stat for any World Cup team.
Yeah.
But with Spain, I would say this number demands a second look. So Tianyu, are we witnessing a genuinely elite, impenetrable defensive unit orchestrated by their possession game, or are Spain yet to be truly tested? Because if we look at their opponents so far, it seems like none of them had a world-class attacking line.
Yeah, I actually think it's more like the second reason. I think they have not been really tested. I think the reason Spain haven't looked shaky defensively is because they really allow games to reach that stage. I mean, most of the battles happened in midfield, and the moment they lose the ball, you could see everyone pressing immediately. Their forwards work really hard. They fight for second balls, and they block passing, lanes really well. So if you look at this Spanish team, they are not particularly big or physical, but they keep winning the ball back because they read the game so well. Their positioning and football intelligence are really outstanding. But that said, I don't think their defense is unbeatable. I mean, the Portugal game actually gave us a few clues. I mean, Portugal actually created a few dangerous chances through crosses, and if they had been a little more clinical and a little bit more decisive in the final third, I think Spain could have been in real trouble. And apart from Portugal, though, I think Spain haven't really faced a team that consistently put them under pressure. So that's why I think the knockout rounds will, be the real test when we will really find out just how solid Spain's defense actually is.
I think the real test maybe lie in France. With France facing Spain, that may be a big test for them. Well, this defense line has worked so well for Spain so far, but it might be a bad sign from my perspective for the team because they haven't figured out what could go wrong. They have kept their back line not on fire so far. Look at Mexico. They also kept a clean sheet before facing England, and they conceded 3 in one match. When the problems are exposed, it might be too late. Brandon, is Spain's defense genuinely resilient, or are we just waiting for the first real stress test to crack the code?
I'm not sure how resilient they are, but they do seem to perform exceptionally well as a unit. I think they really do look well balanced, and I think that starting back four and the goalkeeper also, Simon, also deserves so much credit for not just his shot stopping ability, but just his reading of the game and his communication and his calmness. I think that really does provide a lot of confidence, for the centre back pairing of Kubarasi and Laporte. I think that there's more question marks about Spain's attack rather than their defense. I think that Lamine Yamal's been a little bit underwhelming, and I think that they also are going to potentially struggle if they don't have an out-and-out scorer that bangs in the goals on a consistent basis. So I think that for Spain, the question marks are more around their attacking prowess rather than their defensive abilities, and I think that's going to be something that could be a talking point depending on how results go for them as the tournament moves on.
Right. Now let's switch things to England. The Three Lions are marching on, but there's a difference between winning and looking invincible. When we dissect their journey so far, basically the knockout games against the DR Congo and Mexico, Tianyu, what stands out to you for this England team? Does this squad have that intangible champions quality?
I think they have. Once England had gone back to a more direct and physical, practical style of football, I think they immediately, looked much better. So instead of endlessly passing the ball around in midfield, they are attacking earlier, they're using the wings more often, and they are putting more crosses into the box. It's simpler football, but it's also much more effective. And Harry Kane is clearly the heart of the team. Everything goes around him, and he's shown once again why he's one of the best strikers. And Jude Bellingham has also looked much more comfortable after moving back to his, shadow striker role, the position he played so well when he first arrived at Real Madrid. And it just allows him to make late rounds into the box and just instead of always, starting deeper. And what impressed me most wasn't the attack, it was actually their mentality. Because in the game against Mexico, after Kwangsa made that costly mistake and England had to sit deep, the whole team stayed calm. No one panicked, and everyone worked for each other and defended together. They showed remarkable resilience, discipline, and real team spirit. Those are exactly the kind of game features champions have to survive. They are starting to show championship qualities. But that said, I still think there's a little bit concern around their defense because against a very physical Norwegian side, I'm not completely convinced by the partnership of Mark Guay and Konsa.
Right. Yes, England hasn't faced the best teams yet, but I think the quality of the past 2 games can't be underestimated, especially the last 25 minutes against Mexico, facing the bombardment from Mexican players. Wave after wave of crosses, they held firm. I think that's not survival. That's a big statement from this side. Brandon, are we looking at an England team that's steamrolling towards glory, or are they still far away from a familiar quarterfinal or semi-final heartbreak?
Look, I think they're getting better and better, and I think for their opposition, I think that's a scary prospect, and they definitely have leaders within that squad. Harry Kane, we must also mention Jude Bellingham has been absolutely phenomenal. He really has turned things around. and seems to have found his comfort and leadership role and position in this team, which I think is crucially important for England. So I think that Thomas Tuchel must be thrilled with those two performers in particular. I think he's still trying to figure out what his best combinations are, in defense and, well, everywhere, actually. I mean, I suppose Anderson and Rice are pretty set there in midfield, but I still think he's trying to figure out, is it going to be Gordon? Is it going to be Rashford? What are they going to do defensively? We also haven't seen him experiment with the likes of Eberechi Eze or, Kobe Mainu or a couple of, midfield players that can really have an impact. So I think there's still some doubt within Tuchel's mind about what the best sort of combinations are, particularly in midfield, in defense and higher up in midfield, not in the defensive midfield, like more on the wings and, around Bellingham and Kane, and also figuring out what to do, if Bellingham needs a rest or if Kane needs a rest, which players will come on and have the biggest impact in those situations. But again, finding ways to win, that's the most important thing. And England have done that along with Argentina and a couple of other teams that are really high quality but not performing at their best. So if I'm an England fan, I'm not particularly concerned because they are getting themselves over the line and the most important players within their lineup are probably performing at the levels that are expected of them. So I think there's definitely more positives than negatives in these England performances so far, and I still believe that they are going to get better as the tournament moves on.
Right, looking at the England and the France games, I would say the two best attacking partnerships, Harry Kane and Jude Bellingham. Meantime, Michael Olise and
Kylian Mbappe.
Kylian Mbappe, right.
Yeah. So it's Bayern plus Real Madrid.
Yeah, it's the best match.
Yeah.
Now, the footballing world was stunned when Norway sent Brazil packing. Brazil paid their price, wasting so many chances, while Norway, Erling Haaland to be specific, showed ruthless efficiency. Tianyu, if we rewind the tape and strip away the emotion, was this truly a shock? Did the Brazilians beat themselves with wasteful finishing and defensive complacency?
Yeah, I don't think it was an upset. I actually think Brazil only have themselves to blame. Like you said, they created enough chances to win that game. Bruno Guimaraes missed the penalty. Endrick had a great one-on-one that he couldn't finish. And I think Martinelli also wasted really good opportunities. So the chances were there. They just didn't take them. The Brazil team is very different from the Brazil we've grown up watching. I mean, in the past, we are so used to seeing Brazil being the team that's dominate possession, control the tempo, and just attack waves after waves. And this time, they have to sit deep and play on the counter. To be honest, I don't think this squad has the same level of individual quality as some of the great Brazil teams in history. Yes, not even close. Yes.
Most boring, lack of creativity Brazil squad that I've ever seen, and probably even in history, I'd say.
Yeah, they have exciting young players, but they don't have the feeling that every forward can change the game on their own.
Yes, since Carlo Ancelotti took charge, Brazil seemingly has abandoned their traditional samba possession game and instead embraced a counter-attacking style. And to be fair, the players executed the game plan well. They've done what Ancelotti told them. But execution without efficiency is just running, especially in counterattacks. I mean, Brazil had the system, they had the personnel, they had the chances. But I felt they lacked a belief that this system would work, would deliver. They play the counterattacking football, yes, but they don't have a counterattacking heart inside of this team.
Yeah,
that's my feeling.
Yeah.
Brandon, we just praised how good Ancelotti was in the Japan game, and now they were stunned by Norway. Does Brazil deserve to be knocked out? Who should carry that blame?
I just think Brazil's biggest problem is just that lack of quality. I think that they don't have any creativity whatsoever. They don't have the ability to dominate the ball. I mean, Norway dominated possession. Yes, they created chances, Brazil. I think that they deserve credit for the amount of chances that they created, but their efficiency in front of goal was also really lacking. I just think it was too much pressure on these players' shoulders, that comes from the past. And I think this is, I stand by it. I think this is the weakest, at least, World Cup team that Brazil has ever put out, I would say, in history. So with all of that in mind, I think, yeah, Ancelotti and the players deserve credit for going out there and doing their absolute best. But I just think Norway were the better team. I think Haaland was fantastic. I think Odegaard will get better. And I think that, the likes of Nusa and a couple of other players around Haaland will also need to step up if they are going to go further in the tournament. But I just think they looked like a more complete and more dominant team on the day than Brazil did, which sounds crazy because, obviously we know the quality that Brazil have shown in the past. But I think if we're just looking at this current squad now and the way that they play, they definitely don't have enough world-class quality to get over the line if they are coming up against a structured team and if they are not, dominating possession.
All right, let's see which powerhouse will transform what they have on paper to solid performances on the pitch. With that, we end this episode of Sideline Story. Thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe to Sideline Story and leave your comments wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information, you can also check our website at radio.cgtn.com. Until next time, stay on the sidelines with us.